Hello, today let's talk about Jesus and some of the things that he did. He's known as Emmanuel. In Matthew's Gospel talks about him as Emmanuel, which means God with us. So God came to earth and lived as a person. And while he was on earth, Jesus talked to a lot of people and he told some people some things to do. So I want to look at some of that. Some of the things he told people to do were impossible. He told them to do impossible things. So why would he do that? Why would he tell somebody to do something that was impossible? For example, one time there was a man who had a withered hand. Something was wrong with his hand and he couldn't use it apparently. So first he told the man to do something that he could do, something reasonable, said, come stand here. And then he said, stretch out your hand. Well, that was impossible. If the man had been able to stretch out his hand, he would have already done it before he saw Jesus. But Jesus told him to do it, and so he did. Also, a couple of times, there were a crowd of people out away from town, and they were hungry. Luke tells us about 5,000 men plus the women and children, and the crowd was hungry, and the disciples said, well, let's send them away so they can have something to eat. And Jesus said, you give them something to eat. And all they had was 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. It was impossible to feed 5,000 people with that. But they did. How about the time he went up to a grave and said, Lazarus, come forth. And another time he was walking along the road and stopped a funeral procession, told the young man that had died, said, arise. And how about the little girl? He said to get up. She had died. What about these? They did it. It's impossible. He told people to do things that were impossible. There was a person who was paralyzed, a man who had been paralyzed for at least 38 years. And Jesus told him, pick up your bed and walk. Impossible. If he had been able to do that, he would have already done it. How about a man who was paralyzed so that he had to have 4 of his friends bring him to Jesus? Jesus told him to get up, take your bed and go home. If he had been able to do that, he already would have. Jesus has asked them to do impossible things. The difference? Without Jesus, they were impossible. Without God's support, those things were impossible. But with him, the impossible becomes possible. So today, let's ask ourselves, each one of us, ask ourselves, what impossible thing has Jesus or God asked us to do? Is it to do something that we've been putting off? Is it to forgive someone who has treated us terribly? Is it to change our behavior in some way? What was impossible without God is possible with God. Again, let's ask ourselves, what impossible thing has God asked me to do?